Hey! So, I wasn't going to film this today, and then I got a short burst of energy after work, so I decided, what the hell? I'm actually really busy tomorrow, which is the day it's going up, so I probably should film this today. So, my wrap up for August. I actually did really well. I didn't expect to read as many books as I did. I knew I was going to be doing Galleathon, so I kind of prepared for that. I made a TBR at the start of August with my TBR wheel. I stuck to pretty much none of those books. Whoops. But I did do really well in terms of reading, and I'm really happy with what I read. So, I'm just going to get into it and tell you all of the books I've read this month. So, first off, I read Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Infernal Devices trilogy. I obviously can't tell you too much because it is a sequel to the first book. I read the first book last month and I loved it so much. I did my reading vlog. This one has a reading vlog that I will link up in the tags, so make sure you go and check this one out. This story follows on from the first book, and all I can really tell you about it is that I loved it. I was absolutely in love with this. I was kind of told it was the book that suffered from middle book syndrome, basically. I was told that it was really good, it was equally as good as the others, but if someone had to choose which one was the least favourite, it'd be this one because it was very much setting up for the final book. And I did not feel that way at all. This is actually turned out to be my favourite book in the entire Shadowhunter Chronicles so far. And I was enamoured with it. I loved it. I loved it so much. And I just thought it was great. I love seeing the character development. I cried many a time. And I was so shocked. And you know what? Go and check out my vlog because I've kind of discussed everything there. I don't want to repeat myself over and over. Be boring for me, be boring for you. So I read this and I gave it 5 stars and I thought it was amazing. I did say that I was going to make more of a conscious effort to discuss content warnings now, and I'm going to do that. 5-star read, absolutely loved it. One of my favourite books this month. Next, I read First to Die by James Patterson. Now, this is the first book in the Women's Murder Club series, which now has 20 books and 2 novellas. So it's a big series, and I was always too scared to start it. It's I think the second most famous book series that James Patterson's ever done. I obviously love the Alex Cross books. People will know this if you've watched my channel. And the Women's Murder Club was always kind of said to be very equal to that. Everyone always loved that one. People but pretty much love one or the other. They've never kind of said which. And I was always scared in case I didn't like them as much. And then also the fact that there are now 22 books in the series. I was just like, I don't want to start that. But my lovely friend Jade from Paperback to Hardback was actually going to start them anyway. She's collecting them. And we said, hey, how about we buddy read all of these? Let's get through them. It'll be a lot of fun. Perfect. So we started buddy reading and we read the first one. And it was actually really good. The only reason that I don't have the physical copy with me is because it's in my James Patterson shelf on the back layer and I couldn't be bothered getting everything out. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. Personally for me, not as good as Alex Cross up to now, but I have only read one book, so my feelings might change as I go on. Now this story follows a woman called Lindsay Boxer who actually has quite a serious illness and she's trying to find a way to adjust her life and recover from this. And she is suddenly called onto a case where newlyweds are being murdered on their honeymoon or even at their wedding reception. And nobody can really figure out what's going on. And the story follows Lindsay trying to figure this out, and she kind of creates a secondary group of women who are really, really well up in the force. She recruits herself, who is quite a well-known detective. She then recruits a pathologist, she recruits a journalist, and she recruits a lawyer. And all 4 of them kind of come together, share their own information to help solve the case, because they think that's probably the best way it's going to get done, because they're not technically following the law. They're sharing information that shouldn't be shared, but it helps. Well, what can I say about this? I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was a great book. I gave it a 4-star rating because I really enjoyed it, but there were a few issues. Like, for me, I feel as though the ending wrapped up a little quickly, like extremely quickly. And I expected a little bit more from that. But I'm excited to kind of find out more and see how I feel about that. Moving on, my third book of the month was The Yellow Wallpaper by, who was this by? Charlotte Perkins Gilman. I was not a big fan of this, to be honest. A lot of people had read it and said, oh, it was amazing, it was so great. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a go, because it was like 99p on Kindle. And I thought, what the hell? I'll download it, I'll give it a go. I did not enjoy it. It's a very short book about a woman who is suffering with postnatal depression after giving birth, and she's not really getting any support. And it's about her being locked in this room and basically going through the stages of psychosis. And for me, it just kind of fell a bit flat. I didn't see the point. And I don't really know what I expected. I knew it was a short book, so I didn't expect like the world from it, but I expected a bit more, and it didn't really happen. I mean, I can totally see the merit. I can totally see why everyone loved it, but for me, it just fell a little bit flat. Obviously, this kind of concerns psychosis, postnatal depression, a lack of knowledge and support surrounding mental health. They're quite important content warnings to consider. But for me, I understood the merit. I enjoyed it, but when I finished it, I was just like, oh, okay, I'm done then. Like, it didn't give me any overall satisfaction for what I read. So overall, I gave this a 3-star rating. I thought it was fine, nothing great. And it kind of read, obviously it is an older book, so it kind of read more like a classic. So I had issues with the writing and the language as well that was used. Probably not the best book for me, to be honest. It was pretty stupid of me to give it a go, but what the hell. It was a short book. I give it a go. I had my opinion on it. Now, on to my fourth book. I read They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I was quite worried about this. I was sent this by the lovely Victoria from What Victoria Read, and I had some concerns because people either loved it or hated it. And I kind of thought this was a story I was going to be in love with. And I was very nervous to find out if I was going to hate it or not. I absolutely loved it. I gave it a 5-star. This is a book I have, literally the second I put it down, I thought, I want to pick it back up. I want to reread it. I'm not ready to let go. Now, this story follows 2 characters who find out that at the end of the day, they're going to die. And they decide, I don't want to die alone. So they download an app and find a final friend. You can either find a friend who is not dying on that day who can offer their support, or you can find someone else who is going to die on that day and spend your last remaining time together. Now, this story follows Matteo and Rufus, who are both going to be dead at the end of the day, and it's really just a cute little contemporary about how they want to spend their time together, because they're so different. Like, Rufus is very much the hard man, he's a gangster lad, and Matteo is just very, very much not. Matteo's the very introverted, shy, quiet guy. And seeing their dynamic and their relationship grow and seeing that really big bond just really warmed my heart. I initially felt, oh, it's going to be like, oh, really quick connection and people are going to be besties and stuff like that. And I was like, but I suppose at the end of the day, it works. Because if this is your final day, you're not going to have time to get to know someone slowly. You're going to rush into it. And I kind of understood it and I loved it. And all I can say, I cried from page 1. I really did. I broke my heart from page 1 of this book. I still think about it to this day. There are times when I just sit there and I think, I want to read that again. And it makes me cry again. I'm actually getting emotional talking about it. Actually, there was one content warning that I didn't know at all. And then when it came into it, I was kind of thrown aback a bit. I handled it quite well, but it was important to mention. There is also a content warning for a terrorist attack. Now, this was obviously quite important to me because for those of you that don't know, I live in Manchester and I worked at the arena at the time of the 2017 terrorist attack. So it's quite a sensitive topic for me. and I didn't know that that was going to happen. It was quite a shock to find out, if I was honest. But this book is an absolute 5-star. Best book I've read this year, I think. And I didn't think that was going to happen, because I recently made a video, which I will link, hopefully. I feel like I'm going to be linking everything up here. I don't know if I can do that. I may link it up here. If it's popped up, you'll see it. I did a top 10 books I've read this year, or top 5 books I've read this year, it was, I think. And I didn't think anything was going to top that. And this is my number 1 book. No changes, nothing. I'm in love with it, and I honestly want to reread it, and I love it. Yeah. So I don't know how everyone else thinks about this, but I gave it a 5-star. I absolutely loved it, and I think everyone should give it a go if you haven't. And I would love to hear other people's opinions on this, whether you liked it or not. I always think about it when it comes to this book. I love it so much. I can't wait to reread this. So, then Galeathon happened. Yay. I actually read so many books during Galeathon. It was a lot of fun. I started out with Safe by S.K. Barnett, and I really enjoyed this story. I actually started it a while ago and then just kind of put it down in favour of other books. So I'm glad that I finally got to finish it, because it came out a while ago and I didn't read it. So this is a story about a young girl that got kidnapped when she was a child, and suddenly she just returns home, and her parents are trying to figure out why is she home now, or what happened to her, how did she escape, where's she been all of this time. And the story follows them trying to readjust to this family dynamic, as well as the mystery surrounding what happened to this girl, and questioning whether she is safe at home. And it was really good. I felt that the drama was building ever so slowly. I thought it was great. I thought it was the perfect amount of tension and building. Overall, I gave it a 4-star, because I feel as though the ending was rushed ever so slightly. Not much, but just ever so slightly. And I was just so disappointed after it building at a perfect rate. It was just kind of a flopped ending. Like, the ending was really good, don't get me wrong. Brooke credit, she was not a big fan of the ending at all. I enjoyed the ending. I thought it was great. I thought it was fine. But it did kind of knock it out of top tier book for me. So I gave this book a 4-star in the end, just based on that ending, because for me, especially when it comes to thrillers, endings are really crucial. I feel that way with every book anyway, but with thrillers, if the ending is bad, you ain't getting a good rating from me. So I gave this a 4-star. I thought it was very good. Obviously, serious content warnings. I'm reading thrillers, so there are going to be serious content warnings. It was very interesting, and I would definitely recommend picking it up. I feel like I'm doing this really badly today. I'm so sorry. Maybe I'm not as ready for it after work as I thought I was. Anyway, moving on. After Safe, I started Cinderella is Dead. Now, this was a good pick for me for Galeathon, and it was actually the arc I regretted requesting. And really, the only reason I regretted it is because a few people had read it and told me that it was really, really bad. And Brooke was one of those people. And I thought, okay, I'll be aware of that. I'll go in. I'll give it a go. And I got 8% of the way in. And I DNF'd. I could not read it. I don't know what the issue was. Apparently, I found out afterwards it doesn't even have chapters. It was just one long book, which I can't do. But I don't know what the issue was. I just found the writing to be very long and drawn out, and I struggled so much to actually get into it. And yeah, I just, in the end, I ended up DNFing it. It wasn't fun. For all of these books that were part of Galeathon, again, I do have a dedicated vlog. I will link it up there, so go and check that out. I speak about all of the books in much more detail. I just don't want to repeat myself at this point. So all you need to know, Cinderella is Dead flopped for me. DNF'd it. Did not like it at all. And as I didn't get very far in, I can't really give any content warnings for it. So if you want to know more, go and check out my Galeathon vlog. Then, after that, I read I Made a Mistake by Jane Corrie. This is one of those books that also came out a long time ago, and I just forgot to read it. So I Made a Mistake follows the story of a woman called Poppy who is a agent. Yeah, she's an agent for extras in the acting business. And suddenly she meets an old boyfriend of hers who is an actor. And she, whilst being a big believer of the fact that there are women who cheat on their husbands and there are women who don't, she makes a mistake, basically. And the story is about her finding out the consequences of making a mistake. Now, for me, I thought this was a really good book. I really enjoyed my reading of it, but I had to give it a 3 stars because I did have a few issues with the book. Namely, I felt as though half of the book didn't need to be there. Ironically, it was a very good half of the book. I loved it, but it was told from 2 perspectives. There was the perspective of our main character, Poppy, and then there were other chapters. It was just basically they alternated. And there were other chapters from the perspective of a character called Betty, who is the mother-in-law of Poppy. But Betty's chapters were not present day. Betty's were about her life when her son, who is Poppy's husband, was just born, even before that. And it in my head, it didn't really need to be in that story. As I really enjoyed that part. I love learning about Betty's character. I loved the backstage thing. But in my head, it was just unnecessary. And had they been taken out, it wouldn't have affected the story in any way. So I took issue with that. Also, I kind of took issue with the end because I can't really explain much because spoiler territory, but I feel as though the ending was a bit too easy, a bit too neatly wrapped up, in my opinion. Like I said, it didn't affect my reading of the story. I still really enjoyed it. I'm not someone who's very critical when it comes to books. If I'm critical, it comes down to the writing style, not so much to the story itself. So I really enjoyed it. But at the end, I was just like, meh. It was a really good story, but it was easy and it was predictable. And that's what I took issue with. And after that, I read Imperfect Women by Araminta Hall. This was another arc I got. It was due to come out the week of Galeathon, and I thought, great, I'll get it read, get it done before it comes out. Sadly, I DNF'd it. I don't even remember the story. I was really not enjoying it. The story, I think from memory, is that there are 3 friends, and one of them gets murdered, and it's about the lies that the friends told each other kind of coming out. I think that's literally all I know about it. In the end, I got 15% of the way in, and I just got annoyed because it just kind of flipped. Like there was no sense of timing or time lapsing. It was just paragraph ended, and then the next paragraph it was like 3 months had passed, but it didn't say 3 months had passed. It was just kind of worked into the story. But I couldn't wrap my head around it, and it just wasn't for me. So in the end, I said, I'm sorry, I'm out. And for my final book of Galeathon, I read When Life Gives You Mangoes by Corinne Getton. Now, I really enjoyed this. I was always told that this was amazing. Everyone loved it. I've not heard a bad review for it yet. And I was kind of scared of going into it in case I didn't like it. But I really did. I thought it was a really good story. I thought the kind of start was a bit slow. Like, it took a while to get into it, and then once we were into it, and it was really interesting. And I loved learning all about these characters. I loved learning about what was going on. So if you don't know, this story follows a young girl who has no memory of what happened the summer before. Then a new girl moves into the town and suddenly becomes best friends with her, and she starts gaining her memory back of what happened the summer before, and it's all quite mysterious as to what happened. And I loved it. I loved the character development. I loved how this was a middle grade and it handled some very serious topics. I couldn't fault it. I think the only issue I took with it is that the start was very, very slow for me. Me personally, I felt that. So I gave it a 4-star rating, which is still really, really good. It was a great book, but the start was really slow. So it took me a while to get into it. And that's as much as I can say. Next, after that, I read Kingdom Keepers Disney After Dark by Ridley Pearson. This was sent to me by the amazing Robbie, and we said we was going to buddy read this, and it's about some children who are Disney people. I don't really know. They're actors for Disney, and they get turned into holograms. And when people are at Disney, these holograms appear and chat to the people and give them information and stuff. But something's wrong at Disney, and these young kids are kind of dragged back into the bodies of their holograms to fight people known as the Overtakers, who are trying to take over the theme park and cause evil. And I thought, oh, it's about Disney. It's about people fighting Disney villains. I'm going to love it. I'm going to be on board. I'm really excited. And Robbie told me this was one of his favourite ever book series. And I was like, right, I am ready. And I gave it 2 stars. I hated it. Y'all know me. Y'all know I hate audiobooks. I hate them with a passion. And I couldn't read the book. I had to actually listen to the audiobook just to get through it. I feel bad calling this book because Robbie's going to watch this and he's going to hate me. I didn't like it, basically. I was really disappointed. I've actually written quite a detailed Goodreads review, so go and check that out because I'm scared of mentioning it anymore in case Robbie drop kicks me for calling his favourite book. After that, I read Loveless. Now, this was a group buddy read between me and a group of friends, and this is a story about a young girl called Georgia who moves away to university, and suddenly she starts feeling very awkward and upset about the fact that she's never kissed anyone, she's never had romantic feelings for anybody, and she feels judged for that. And it's about her journey of self-discovery, finding out that she is in fact ace. And it was a lovely story because I didn't know much about aromantic or asexuality, and I thought it was really interesting for me to read because I got to learn so much more, and it was really good. And on top of that, I was quite concerned that I wasn't going to like this book because it was very character journey driven, and I'm someone who needs a good plot, but this story had such a good plot as well, and I loved it. In the end, I gave it a 4.5 rating because I thought it was great, but I think for me personally, it's one of those books that I will read and I loved it, but I don't want to read it again because I don't feel as though I'll love it as much the second time around. And I think if I don't want to reread it, it can't be a 5-star for me because that's one of the things I kind of base a 5-star on. Would I reread the book? And if I will, perfect, it deserves 5-star. If I won't, then I can't give it a 5-star. So I gave it as close to, and I gave it a 4.5. After that, I moved on to a book that was on my ranking 5 books by their first line. I picked Sleepers to read because this was number 1. Brooke rated this as the book she thought I would love the most. And to be fair to her, I thought this myself. I thought I would absolutely love this. In the end, I DNF'd it, sadly. The reason I DNF this actually though, and it's important, again with this one, I do have a video dedicated, so I don't want to talk too much on it. I will link it above. But with this, I found out that the story was a non-fiction and it contained a lot of child abuse. And that is a very serious content warning for me. That's something I've learned this year that I couldn't read about. When I first picked this, it was in April, I think. I didn't know I had that trigger, and then in May I did mental health-a-thon and I read a story about that, and then I think it was July I read My Dark Vanessa and I had to DNF it because I couldn't handle the same story in that. And then when it came to this one, I realised it was about child abuse and sexual abuse. I thought I can't do this again. So in the end I sadly DNF'd it. So not throwing any shade at Brooke because this might have been my top one. I just kind of learnt more about myself and what I like to read and what I don't like to read before I picked this. So sadly I DNF'd it. This story is about 4 young boys who pull a prank and end up getting sent to a juvenile detention centre, I think that's right. A reform school. There we go. They get sent to a reform school. And whilst there, they suffer a lot of mental, physical and sexual abuse. And it's about them as an adult and how that's affected each of them. Not a book I could handle, to be honest. After that, I read My Sister's Keeper. Now this, if you don't know, is a story about a young girl who has cancer and her parents can't find a donor that will help her survive. So they create a baby. They make a specially designed child who can give the young girl dying of cancer everything she needs. And it's about the girl who has been specifically made saying, I am a human as well. I have the right to my own body. I don't want to be forced to give my organs anything to somebody anymore. I don't want to be forced to do that. And it was quite a harrowing story, really. And I thought this would be one that I really enjoyed, but I really did not like it. I didn't like how the young girl was treated. I didn't like the story overall. This is again one of those stories I had to get an audiobook out just to finish it, and there are some serious issues with this. I hated the mother in this. Sarah, who is the mother, was such a horrible, horrible woman. She had absolutely no care for her child. All she cared about was the daughter who was dying of cancer. She had no time for the other one. And it's really upsetting to see, like when our main character Anna made the decision that she doesn't want to give organs to her sister anymore. She told her mum, and her mother's first reaction was not, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I can't believe I've made you do this. Her mother's reaction was not, let's sit down, let's talk about this. Her mother's first reaction was to smack her in the face and say, how could you be so selfish? And from that moment, I just thought, no, I'm out. I hate it. And I really hated this story. I really did. I really struggled. The only reason I actually finished this is because it was part of the ranking the books by the first line. And at that point, I'd already DNF'd 2, and I couldn't justify DNFing a third one. But I hated it so much, I wanted to DNF this. So, would not recommend. Alrighty, after I read My Sister's Keeper, I read Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I picked this one up because it is my local book club's pick, and the book club for that is actually on Friday. So I thought, right, I best give it a go, best read it. And I listened to this one via audiobook, and I really enjoyed it, actually. I was a bit disappointed, to be honest. I gave it a 3-star rating, but hear me out. This story starts off with a fire, and then it takes you back to find out about the events and the characters and everything leading up to what happened and this fire starting. So, naturally, I made an assumption that this was going to be about who set the fire, why did they set the fire, and all of that drama. Not really mentioned. None of that is mentioned until right at the very end, in my opinion. The story just follows the characters living their lives, and I'm like, oh, okay. And that bothered me a bit. When I realised that the story was not going to be about the fire, I enjoyed the story for what it was. I thought it was really interesting and really fun and very easy to listen to and easy to read. But it disappointed me that I expected it to be all about this fire and it wasn't. You know, I was just really disappointed. So the next book I read after that was Clockwork Princess. I finished off the Infernal Devices. I have an entire vlog dedicated to this, so go and check it out. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It's the final in a trilogy. Can't really tell you much about it. And I'm trying not to rush through this now, but I honestly genuinely have nothing to say about this that wasn't already said in the vlog. If you have not read these books, don't watch the vlog because spoilers. But this is the final book in the trilogy that follows the characters Tessa, Jem, and Will, and the crap they've had to deal with over the last 2 books. And this is the final conclusion. And I thought it was great. It was perfect. It was a perfect ending. I couldn't have asked for a better ending. I sobbed, I laughed. It was great. And I would recommend checking out the Infernal Devices if you have not already. If you have, I would recommend checking out my vlog. If you have already watched my vlog, check it out again. I could do with the views. Alrighty, after this, I read Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar. I Really, really enjoyed this. This was my first dip into slasher horror books. I'd read some horror before. Um, I love slasher horrors as movies, but I'd never read a slasher horror as a book. This was my very first one, and wow, I love it. And honestly, the fact that I am now sat here thinking I want to read more slasher books is entirely down to that book. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I filmed a review for it, which is up in the cards. Again, if it is not up in the cards, it is linked below. I loved it so much. I thought it was fun. I don't really have much else to tell you about it that I didn't really put in the review. The review is spoiler free, so go and check it out. And make sure you pre-order the book. It's really good. After that, I read Charlotte by Helen Moffat. I don't know why I'm not holding the book up. It's right here. I got this as an ARC book. It is actually out on the 3rd of September, so Thursday, tomorrow. You'll see this. This goes up on Wednesday, so it'll be out tomorrow. And this is a reimagining of the character of Charlotte Lucas from Pride and Prejudice. And initially I was really drawn to this because I thought, oh, that's really good. It's a reimagining of a classic. I can't do classics because I hate the writing style. This, written in 2020, won't have that writing style. I can do it, I can read it, and it'll be like I've read a bit of Pride and Prejudice. And then I picked it up, and it's exactly the same writing style. It was written in the way as Pride and Prejudice was. And I was so disappointed that that was the case because I got about 50 pages in and I thought, I can't do it. I really expected this to be more modern language and I was so disappointed when it wasn't. But this story does follow the character of Charlotte Lucas after the events of Pride and Prejudice. And I thought, okay, I'm excited to read it. It might be fun. Sadly, I was disappointed. If this sounds like something that would be good for you, I would definitely recommend checking it out. If you can handle the writing style of a classic, I would definitely recommend checking it out because, to be honest, the part of the story that I read, like the first 50 pages, was actually really interesting. I actually really liked the story. That's the worst thing. I was enjoying reading it. I just didn't like the writing style and I couldn't get through it. So, yeah, I had to DNF it, sadly. Okay then, we are finally at my final book of the month. Now, when I picked this one up, I had 1 day left. I literally picked it up on the final day of August and I thought, I'm starting my secret TBR on the 1st of September. I want to read something now, but I don't want to read something that will take me more than 1 day to read. And I thought, well, what's short enough for me to pick up? And I remember that the lovely Steph sent me volume 1 of Heartstopper. And I thought, what the hell? I'll give it a go. I've never read a graphic novel, but it'll be quick, it'll be easy, it'll be fun. And I read it. Whoa, it's mint. I love it. I thought it was great. I'm annoyed it ends on a cliffhanger. You know what? I'm doing a nice thing. I'm telling you guys. No one told me it ended on a cliffhanger. I was furious. But I did think this was lovely. I love seeing the kind of friendship build and then that develop into a cutesy little relationship. I loved all of it. There was not one thing I didn't love. I love the representation. I love that. And I don't love it. It's actually quite sad. But obviously this deals with discovering sexuality and questioning your sexuality. But it also had a moment where a character was sexually assaulted. And I love that that was put in there because I think it's possible that people wouldn't see it as sexual assault, but I did immediately. I'm going to go into a tiny bit of detail, so if you are not comfortable, feel free to skip ahead about 20 seconds. And yeah, do that. So our main character has been seeing someone in secret because the other character is not comfortable with coming out. And in the end, he decides, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not ashamed of who I am. I don't want to keep it a secret. I think it's best that we stop seeing each other. And then the character later bumps into this guy again. And this guy forces himself on him, forces him to kiss. And he's really uncomfortable with it. He actually ends up crying. It's really emotional. And a lot of people wouldn't see something like a kiss as sexual assault, but I would. It's forcing someone into something sexual that they are not comfortable with. And the fact that that was included was such a big deal for me, because it really goes to prove that sexual assault does happen. To some people, that might be something so minor they wouldn't class it as sexual assault, but that's exactly what it is. And having that representation in there is so important. I was so glad it did that. So yeah, I'm annoyed that it ended on a cliffhanger. I'm excited to get the rest. I can't wait till October, because when payday happens, I will probably buy myself the next one or next two. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. I'm excited. And this was the final book I read in August. So those are all of my books. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As I mentioned, I think my favourite book this month, and perhaps all year, was They Both Die at the End, which I read. What was everyone else's favourite? I'm really interested to know that. That'll be a lot of fun. So thank you so much for watching again. I really appreciate it. Make sure you keep tuning in for my Secret September TBR. I'm going to be posting photographs on Instagram and on Twitter, so make sure you are guessing at what my secret theme is. And then I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you again for watching.